Salute family. Thank Commander Zulu back at you once again, and the real man movement. Today, I want to talk about stress. Are you feeling stressed? How should a real man deal with stress? And is all stress negative? Or is there such thing as positive stress? Let's talk about it here today at the Real Man Movement with Tank Commander Zulu. I salute you once again, family. Let's get into it. Young Bull, Real Man Movement, we going for 10. 10 reps for 315. Let's go, baby. Come on. Go. Get him. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. 7. Come on. 8. Come on. 9. One more. Come on. Ooh, he paused on it. Fight! Woo, 10 of them, baby. He going for 11. Go! Go! Oh, hey, look at this truck. Excellent. Real Man Movement, baby. Salute, family. Tank Commander Zulu back at you once again in the Real Man Movement. Before we get into the topic of discussion today concerning stress, I want to invite you to become a subscriber to the channel. Get on the tank with the Tank Commander. Become a part of the Real Man Movement. There's power in unity. In our unity, just on YouTube, it has a grave and broad effect, and it can impact the men of this world. Let's get into the conversation concerning stress. And how does a real man handle stress? Stress in some cases is somewhat of a mystery. It's a mystery because of the power that stress possesses. When we say the word stress, we tend to think negatively, and it does have a very, very powerful negative effect if we allow it to. But stress, under the right conditions, under the right mindset, can produce something of value inside of a man. It can bring the best out of you. Mind first. Let's go. Hardcore. You want to lift off? Oh, that's what I'm talking about. No damn lift off. Come on. Give it to him. Come on. Come on. Come on. Fight. You got it. Woo. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Give me something. Give me something. See? But we have to look at the conditions of stress. Stress exists in all facets of our life. You can have stress in your relationships, marriage, family problems, on your job. You can have stress conditions with your health. You get a report of bad health from the doctor, and that produces a certain kind of stress in you sometimes. Well, let's take a real look at stress. What it's able to do, both positively and negatively. Let's not look at stress all the time as something negative. Because when you bring order to stress, you can produce something very, very positive. Not only in your life, but in the life of other people as well. Let's talk about some practical conditions. I can think of a position or a condition that produced a lot of stress in me. And I had to learn this, y'all. When Tank Commander Zulu's talking about these issues, it's not that I'm perfect. But God has allowed me to live a real life. And I've learned and I'm still learning how to deal with many areas that are important in being a man. In other words, conditions that you're gonna definitely run into and how we should handle them. And even if we fail the first time, we get up, dust ourselves off, and we go right back at it. That's what real men do. That's how we do it at the Real Man Movement. All power movements. What have you done today? Are you working today? You better be to hang with the natural gorillas. You won't be able to make it. I'm AKA Zulu, AKA Mr. Make You Throw Up. Real man movement. But let's talk about stress. I can remember when I was younger, and I think I was going to my second combat zone at this time. Second tour in Iraq. Operation Intrinsic Action. The time that we were supposed to deploy, we got the orders to go. Once again, we had only something like 3 days or so we were notified to go right back in to Iraq. Well, actually, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. What the mission was to train the soldiers on how, the Kuwaiti soldiers, on how to protect themselves. So we were thrown right back into the arena, so to speak, with the same conditions, because we were supposedly under a ceasefire. Meaning that the forces, the military forces in Iraq and the military forces of the United States, us, were at a ceasefire at that particular time. Understanding what a ceasefire is meaning that you don't give up any territory, but everything is at a standstill while negotiations go forward. A lot of political jargon that frontline soldiers don't deal with. We there to fight. But I was in Saudi Arabia again, in Kuwait, and we were on what was called the front line at that time, during the ceasefire. So we're occupied. Now our mission this time was to go. This is after Desert Storm. Our mission this time was to go and train the Kuwaiti soldiers. So now we're in the midst of training them while we're still on that front line, separating us between Iraq and Saudi Arabia. So now, what takes place? One night, while our guards were kind of down, because we're supposed to be in a ceasefire, 16 T-72 tanks come across the horizon. Now, a T-72 tank is an enemy tank. But at that time, Syria was our ally. In Syria, the vehicles, the tanks they had on the front lines were T-72s. Now, as a tanker, M1A1 tanker, the T-72 is the #1 enemy tank produced by the Russians. But Syria owned T-72 tanks, and they were our ally at that time. So we didn't have any orders about T-72 tanks or Syria doing any activity or coming in the direction they were coming. So when I saw it, me and a few other people in the battalion recognized these tanks coming our way. Their gun tubes were not up in the air, which is a submissive position. Their gun tubes were directly pointed straight and looking and scanning for targets. This produced a stressful condition. Everybody went haywire once we identified exactly what was going on and the magnitude of the enemy force coming our way, not in a passive manner, but in a manner that suggested that they were going to engage us. So this is real facts. The stress that produced, because we're supposedly in a ceasefire, we have a Geneva Convention, rules of the Geneva Convention that we have to adhere to. But now your life is directly on the line. The possibility of you being fired on is real. And what it turned out to be actually that enemy forces were surveilling us. They were watching us for days. They were watching us actually for weeks. as long as we were out there on that front line. They had been watching us. And so they would figure that since our guards were down, that they can come up on us and fire on us and take some casualties and then retreat back. But because the stress level was controlled, and what I mean by controlled, we were highly trained. We were highly trained fighters in armor battalions. We knew how to react, and we knew how to engage the enemy, even if that enemy was coming at us at a passive way. There's certain things that they should do to show that they're passive. This particular instance wasn't so. So we wound up firing on those two T-72s. We destroyed 6 out of 16. The other 10 got away. But the plan was, and later on intel informed us, that the plan was to run up on us at the front line, to engage us, and then to retreat to see what type of force we really had. And that's a lot of combat talk. Some people may not be able to understand it, coming from a soldier that's been in armor battalions and on the front line quite a bit. But from that point, not only did that particular instance cause stress, but after that exchange, when we were on the front line, when we were in that posture, supposedly under a ceasefire, it was stressful every single day. And it started to deal with us. It started to kind of mentally make us a little paranoid. Started to make us do some things that, we normally would not have done, until we got to a position where our command sergeant major came and told us. He put some order to the situation. In any event, if any vehicle, armored vehicle, tank, is coming your way and its gun tube is not extended in the air like it should be, fire. He brought order to it. So in that environment, when we saw any suspicious vehicles, in particular if they were tanks, and their gun tube was not extended, they could not be a part of the Allies. They only had to be a part of the opposition trying things, pretty much trying to take pot shots at us, while we're supposed to be in a ceasefire mode. Stress. Those conditions, I'm telling you this story and it's kind of lengthy, but those conditions of stress, I want you to imagine there's nowhere you can go but live on that tank. There's no getting away from it. There's no leaving for a little while. There's nothing. On that tank, it's you and 3 other members that make up a tank crew. All you have is one another in there. And you're dealing with your own personal stress, and you're also vibing off the stress that's coming from those other people. That's the condition I'm talking about. Stress. Real Man Movement, we back at you with Jared. Champ. Welcome to the trap house, y'all. Trap house work in. After coming off the bench, after doing triceps. All natural gorillas here, baby. Ask yourself, what have you done today? If you didn't do nothing, don't say nothing. Real Man Movement, baby. We building men over here. The positive side of stress. Being put under certain forms of stress can bring the best out of you. In this particular instance, it brought some order. Instead of being all confused about, okay, what's enemy, what's not, what's these vehicles coming our way, what are they doing? We have no intel about them being there. What's going on? Stress now, chaos. But once order was brought to that, and that it was known to all allies or any force, if they are approaching any of the armor units in any way, they must show a submission, a form of submission. And if they did not show that, then their lives were at stake. And I mean, listen, they would have been killed. That's how real it was. And that's how real combat is. It's no playing around, no games. You can make one mistake and you're dead. But order was brought to the stress. And although the situation didn't change, there were many other attempts later on down the line that because we had order and we knew exactly how to respond to it, even though we were in a so-called ceasefire, we brought order to it. You see, sometimes the conditions don't change that may be stressing you out. Stress can bring fear, it can bring uncertainty. But when you have stress and you're dealing with a stressful situation in a stressful environment, when you format rules around those things, rules that take the stress directly off of you, the condition won't fade away, but some of the order that's involved. In other words, you don't have to just take on every aspect of stress by yourself or on your own. You see, before we got the direction from the command sergeant major at that time, our impulse was to act as killers. And that's just the truth. If you are an M1, if you ever were an M1A1 tanker in combat, you are a killer. There is no compromising. You either kill or be killed. That's a stressful environment. You know, in the Bible, in the book of Exodus, it talks about Moses. We know that Moses was at this particular time, in the part that I'm talking about, Exodus 18. Moses had already delivered the children of Israel from bondage. God had used him to get them out of bondage from Egypt. Brought them out of slavery from being enslaved by Egypt. And they're in the wilderness. Moses has sent his wife away and his children away so he can deal with Israel coming out of bondage. These are a group of people that's been in bondage, so they only know how to act one way. Part of them are scared of freedom. The other part of them are relieved, but they still don't know quite how to act. So what Moses is doing, he's trying to be the judge over all these people and all their problems, which created a stressful environment for Moses. Now, they got into a certain part of the wilderness where Moses' father-in-law, whose name's Jethro, was bringing back his wife and children. They had been with him. He sent them away so they could be safe as he deal with the children of Israel and bring them out of bondage and bring them to a place that was a little more stable, although they're still in the wilderness. So Jethro, his father-in-law, excited about what God had done, excited about how God is using Moses. He brings Moses' wife back, which is his daughter, and his children, back to reunite with Moses. And Jethro observes what's taking place. Once he got there the next day, Moses did his regular thing. He got out in the midst of the people and he sat in the middle and started to judge their problems. Now you imagine this. This is thousands of people thousands and thousands of people. And they all got little issues. Some have big issues, some have small issues. Small issues as something like, well, this one said something about me and I don't like it, or this one stole something from me, and all kind of little issues. Imagine that in thousands and thousands of people. And Moses himself was the only one sitting there trying to judge the people's conditions and bring their concerns to God. Well, when Jethro saw this, his father-in-law, he told Moses, look, this is not good for you. This is too stressful. There's no way you can continue doing this. You see, he noticed and identified stress. But what did Jethro do after identifying it? He made a suggestion to Moses. And he told Moses, and I'm paraphrasing this, he said that you have to teach the people really how to go to God concerning their situations. But until they learn these things, that you have to teach them some of the things concerning God, so they know how to react to their problems, and they don't have to bring every little thing to you. So he tells Moses to get some godly men that's around you, that believe like you do, that honor and respect you and believe like you do, and set them out as judges amongst the people. In thousands, hundreds, 50s and tens, whatever it may take. And let them judge over the small matters. But when it come to greater matters, have them take those matters and bring them to you. And you bring them to God. So what Jethro did, he brought some order to the stressful condition that Moses was presented with. You see, the lesson in that beautiful story is that we can't do everything for everyone. It's just like in the combat situation I was trying to relate to you. When chaos broke down, every individual in our battalion acted a certain way, because there was no structure in how we were supposed to handle that particular threat during a so-called ceasefire. So everybody responded different. Some immediately wanted to fire. Some of us didn't know what to do. But one thing for sure, everybody on that front line was a killer and knew how to go to combat. But once structure was brought into play, didn't change the situation, but it made the conditions less stressful. Just like with Moses, with the children of Israel, it didn't change the fact that all of these people had issues, and they had them every day. They've been in slavery, they've been in captivity, so they really don't know how to handle issues, other than how their oppressor, which was Egypt, suggested that they handle them. So now they're on their own, dealing with stress amongst each other. Nobody else was around. It was only Israel, being led by Moses. As powerful and mighty as God used Moses, Moses could not handle continually the stress of each individual. He had to teach them how to go to God. Like his father-in-law suggested, he had to teach them the principles of God. And until they learned the principles, he set other men who were of good courage and good faith to sit as judges as well, so that he didn't have to take the burden of everybody else's confusion and stress. And it brought structure. That made Moses stronger. The stress that was produced could have burnt him out. But because his father-in-law saw what was going on and suggested to him, here's a way that you need to try, Moses. One that'll take the stress completely, not totally, but most of the stress off of you. And you're still able to lead the people. You see, that's what stress is about. Stress can produce good things and it can produce bad things. When there's no order associated with stress, then death comes. When there's no order associated with stress, confusion. Stress can kill you. Stress can make you lose your mind. Stress can tear you apart. But stress can also make you better when structure is involved. Put structure around whatever you're stressing. Whether it's your job, family situation, whatever it may be. Put some structure around it. But you gotta have spirituality. And in doing so, the situation that was so stressful, it may not go away, but you'll be amazed how much easier you're able to handle it. I've experienced it myself in combat. That's all I have today here at the Real Man Movement. Salute to the family, those who ride the tank with the tank commander. And listen, if you are not a subscriber, I encourage you to subscribe today. Get on the tank with the tank commander. Give the videos a thumbs up. Share them with other people. Someone needs this positive male enforcement. That's it today here at the Real Man Movement. Tank Commander Zulu signing out.